Let's continue. Shemiras Shabbos, we're up to Sif Mem Bees. This is page Yud Ches. Says the Shemiras Shabbos, Kedera al Gabi Kedera, one of the bigger Heteirim. A lot of the halachas that we're up to now, we've already seen mentioned in different ha'aros, different footnotes. But of course, this is b'mekaymai. Says the Shemiras Shabbos, Mutter, Litin b'Shabbos Kedera batash al kar. Am I allowed to go faster because we've seen this or no? No, okay. Slower. Chazar doesn't mean slower. This means more thorough. Motor alita b'Shabbos gedera b'otev shakar. You're allowed to put in Shabbos a gedera that has a cold food. Va'afilu oichel she'enoi mevushal. It's not fully cooked. Al gabi gedera shalish. You're allowed to put it on top of a pot on the fire. Why would you be doing that? To remove the coldness. But this is only because it's not fully cooked. You can only put in a place that will not get to Yad Seiledis. So, okay, I don't really know such a common application. Usually foods that aren't fully cooked are not eating. But I guess maybe a case would be like, I don't know, raw salmon that you had in the freezer and you want to thaw it out. I don't know, it sounds ridiculous. But either way, you're allowed to do such. But the next part, this is where it's at. Number one, let's say you have a pot which is a little bit warm and it's fully cooked. Or a davar yavish, afilu kar, a cold davar yavish, which is your cold kugel from the fridge. Afilu kafu, even if it is, no. Try again. A makfi is a freezer. So kafu is frozen. Very good. Filu kafu, even if it's frozen. V'hu, very, very proud of himself. V'hu, so what's, yeah. V'hu mevushal kol tzarkai, if it's fully cooked. Motor lanichal gavi kedir shal eat gavi eish, you're allowed to put on a pot on a fire. Afilu mederach zu, yitzchamim harbe, even if it gets very hot. So the Haaretz over here in Haaretz Kuf Zayin, he explained, in Kuf Yud Zayin, this frozen item, says the Haaretz Kuf Zayin, V'aftaloi royu lachila, ad achshav, it's not fit to be eaten because it's frozen. So his kasha is, why is it not muksa? Why is it not muksa? So first teretz he gives, Midav Kedera Zachas ben Hashemashais, Ayin Gemara and Beya, says Rosh Hashanah, he doesn't like that raya. El Yesh Leimer. Let's see Rosh Hashanah's raya is. She'ein b'chashash muksa. Hoyel ve'evshir lechamim etavshel ba'ivin hamutter. Since you could warm it up in a permissible fashion, therefore, varigan pilpel, if you have pepper, ikadol chazil achila, might not be fit to eat, rak al yidei hamasa b'toich hatavshel, only if it's dissolved inside food, b'kol mokam ein muksa. So Zakar Shem Zalman, something that could become edible in a permissible fashion on Shabbos is not muksa. So Gavaldik, I have a frozen item, a frozen potato grill from my freezer. I can take it out. Right now it's not edible. Who cares? I can put it on top of a pot, or in our world we would call it an overturned pan, or on top of a pot of food, and then it's going to be mutter. Back on top, yeah? No, so he didn't say that yet. So let's first see what he says. He says you put on top of a pot of food. On the top, he points out, first on those small words, it's an important ha'ara, reminder. Do not cover the pot to which are shemichot, towels. You can't wrap it up. First of all, because it's a fire hazard and you don't want your house to burn down, number one. Number two is because of atamana. Okay, now, to answer your question, he does not discuss. Because over here he's discussing that you're putting it on top of a pot of food. So whatever a pot of food is. To answer your question, what we're looking for is that it doesn't look like cooking. So as long as it is a utensil, the Pasha says will be makel. You want to know, can I take a overturned pan and crush it? Yeah, you could crush it. You want to know, can I flatten it into a piece of foil? The answer is no. Why? Because now it's no longer the heter, it's kedera, al gabi kedera, doesn't look like cooking. But kedera on top of a piece of foil, yes, looks like cooking because it's no longer a pot. So that would be fine. Similarly, some people want to, what? The knives? Okay. This thing again emotional, and therefore we're not getting involved. Let's continue. Everyone, science for your projects. will be discussed later. And for now, let's continue. Mem Gimel. Mem Gimel. Kedera. We have a pot. Ubatav Shil. Hamaychel Kamos. Oh, first of all, Stam, I'm sorry. Ha'ara Kufyur Ches, we already learned. Just to remind yourselves, Shem Zalman has an interesting chumrah. He says you're not allowed to put a pot inside the pot because he says it doesn't look strange. He says if I have a pot and I want to put another pot inside it, that doesn't get the heter of kedera b'toch kedera, kedera gabi kedera. We mentioned, what about if it's clearly odd? We mentioned, let's say you have your crack pot and you want to take your 9x13 pan and sit it inside, and you want to sit your challah roll in there, would that be okay? It's no, but for nesina lechatchila, blach is not enough. So I understand. For nesina lechatchila, a blach is not enough. It's not enough. That's what his ha'aron kufyir ches is you need a heter of kedera al gabi kedera. So to get kedera, he learns if it goes inside, you don't have the heter. So. He's also not using the pot. Look at Ara Kavir Ches. I'm not going to argue with you. Just first look at his Ara. I'm about to say what you're going to say, but let's first see what he says. Makdim. Says Rosh Mizalmin, Davka Kedera al Gabe Kedera. Avaloyitin Kedera betoicha Kedera. Sheshulei al yoina mushkaim are submerged betachtaina. Why? Because then it's nechshav kikederachs. So he's talking about I have a big pot, and if I put another pot inside it, it looks like one pot for the outside. So now one might want to say, if I have my big crack pot and I put something inside it, it looks like one pot. Yesh Ladin, Rameir, you want to point out, is no, it still looks odd. It's still inside. You mean that's hello. We're in a near. I understand what you're saying, but we're in the world of Nira. His svara of Nira is from the outside. It looks like a pot. That's his svara. So you didn't talk to his svara. Yes, it is. A cholent is a pot in a fire. If the cholent's in there, the cholent's not in there. That's just sound what? We're not talking about the same case. Your cholent, your crack pot has an outside. Correct. So you're inside. That's called a pot, and you're inside it. You're inside it. No, you're inside. I happen to think that your svara is that it still looks odd, and his whole problem he has is that when one pot, yes, he hung up because of what you said. One pot, that was strange. He's here. One pot, I don't know what's going on now. You just leave your phone. Don't. It's in trouble right now. If his svara is, let's just say his svara, if you have one pot inside another pot, he says you lose the stigma of it having Kedera Gabi Kedera. I was going to point out, and you're saying the next level, Yesh Ladan, even if it's inside, but it's clearly odd, if you'll still have the heter. You're saying even the next level, it's inside, it's on the floor. I happen to agree with you. That's what he says. Let's move on. One more Mayur Dika heter for the day. Mem Gimel. This might be the biggest heter, not a very known heter, which is interesting. Kedera ubatashel. I have a kedera with food. Hamachil kamut kedela shel shuman korosh. Has lots of congealed fat. So, says the Shemiras Shabbos, we'll call this poppers, or call this a roast that has a lot of fat congealed on the outside. If I put this on top of a hot pot, what happens? Then it's a problem. Why? Shekein lechatchila, very important word. Asr lahav shir davar b'Shabbos. You're not allowed to melt something on Shabbos. Why? Misham iser noilad. It's an iser noilad, which, if you look at our Kaviyutes, he points out, is a Ramah, which first of all tells you that Sfarad and Pashtas aren't going to be Mekel. It is a Ramah. Sfarad aren't going to be Machmer, excuse me. It's a Ramah. Why does he say lechatchila? Because you look at the lashon of the Ramah's lashon is something like Yish Noegin lechatchila or something like that. But let's continue. V'rak b'mikra shel tzayrech. Once you have a tzayrech, and then he quotes again the Ramah in the Mishnah Berurah, yesh makam lahakil, which means we don't know what it's. We don't know what a tzayrech is, but makom tzayrech you could take your poppers and warm them up, even though, what was his whole case? It's going to melt. Mikol Makayim Im Hifshir, let's say you did it. There's no problem eating that which melted. That's case number one. Case number two, less lamba. It's a little bit of fat that's going to melt directly into the food. Is not a problem. Now, this is the clincher. This is the clincher. Chocolate chips. Chocolate chips. Chocolate chips do not become chocolate syrup. It's a mistake in Mitzias. I don't know why people say that. Doesn't. Chocolate chips do not run off your cookie. It has never happened. They become soft. They become mushy. What are you pointing to? Well, then you should seek it. That's a different story. It's a different story. Potentially. One thing at a time. His case is a little bit of shuman that's going to be absorbed into the item. I say potentially because here he's talking about something natural, that's something external. Pashtus would have the same method as long as it's going to be absorbed into the item. But then he continues, and he might make this whole thing null and void. Because he says, Roitev, Sherigilin la'ochloi gam kishu karosh. You eat it when it's congealed. Now, all the emotional foodies in the room, everyone please calm down. Thank you. His example is Kegoin Tzir Dagim, fish, brine, fish. You have no Haimish Yidin here? The fish yach? The yach, no? The yach, that's not what it's called. Tzir Dagin, Mutter Lavshirai. Yach, yeah, jelly, but it has a name for it. Fish, Gala's meat. Yeah, fish. So he says, Zalman mutter lav shiroi straight. So let me ask you a question. If anyone has ever taken that bowl of poppers from the fridge with the congealed fat, and when no one was looking, taken a bite, and even though there was some congealed fat in it, the Rebbe just paskind mutter lav shiroi to. Doesn't mean that the right thing to eat plain. There's no retail. You just took a leap of faith. What your shop is doing. First of all, no. Why would you eat that plain? Honestly, the popper sauce. Yeah. Congealed. Of course it does. Comes out of the fridge. Of course it's congealed. But first of all, your svara, he doesn't say. But let's continue. Look at Kuf Chav Gimel. This is a big fight. Look at Kuf Chav Gimel. Shemati v'shem zalman. V'nimuku imay. This is a massive machlekes. However, Yishayim Cholkin al Bal Sefer Truma. Gam Timulav, Sefer Truma is the makar for Noiled. Sefer Truma is where this all comes from, that you're not allowed to take something congealed and melt it. Gam Timulav miperes hamutarim beschita simshuchav sevalf. Deina hamashke achoshem Noiled. Mishon the chashika ichla difference. It's a svara by schita that when you squeeze out the juice from the inside, the juice is not called a new entity. It's called a piece of the food that came out in a liquid form. That's a fancy lumdus if you could hear one. Mistaver deshari. V'gam nir shesir dagim chashav oichel bein shu karush bein shu namuach. V'ayin v'beis meir ayin sham akel neshaynev ayin ingilitav v'chulu v'chulu. Now, we'll end with this. I'm just going to make two disclaimers, like you just said. First of all, is he talking about you eat it by itself? He does not say that. It would have to be, and again, certain times you just have to remember that Shemiras Shabbos was written as a Kitzur Sefer for the average Joe. So when a normal person reads this, what does he say? That's what he's trying to give off. Furthermore, in the previous case, when he said b'makom atzayrech, you're allowed to melt it, and everyone here said, what does it mean tzayrech? Perhaps, and we'll suggest, ba'ifin, perhaps, maybe clearly he didn't tell you what the tzayrech is. It means a tzayrech. What's a tzayrech? Whatever's a tzayrech. Now, if you want to know, the Paiskim over here speak out on that Ramah that says makom atzayrech b'miko. The Paiskim speak out. One of them is they say Congealed Shabbos. That's a little bit difficult, isn't it? Everything on your Shabbos. They say the tzarech archin for guests. Some say it's tzarech giladim for children. So, okay, these are complicated things, but certainly we see, what are we going to take out of this? I think the biggest shiloh usually is, how dry do I have to dry off the meat? I have the meat and there's a little bit of congealed fat, like, do I mamish have to? It's getting a little wild at some point. First of all, it gets absorbed inside of it. Even if it doesn't get absorbed inside of it, you would eat it the way that it is. And even if not, we're dealing with the chumrah of the Ramah, which with the evidence is mutter, and b'makom ening Shabbos is meikol. So l'chayra, yesh makom ladin in a lot of these cases would be congealed meat. This would be poppers. This would be what they call Hasselback salami for all your Hasselback salami lovers out there. And there for sure, people take it straight from the fridge and eat it, even though when it warms up, it melts and it gets all runny. So l'chayr in all these cases, there'd be yesh makayim, ladin, lahakel, but again, only on top of a pot of food, b'siyata dishmai.